Finance Committee, Tuesday, April 11th. I am joined by Tom Slottick, Tom Duane, and Alvin Mark Stoyer. I am Joe Moore. And can I get a motion for the approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Motion to approve, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then opposed. Item number 3, approval of the minutes from March 28th.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. Item number 4 is consideration with possible action on a request by the City Assessor's Office to cancel certain personal property taxes.
Move to approve.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second for discussion. Alderman Stoyer?
Was there any other, well, I did take a peek at it. I wasn't sure if anybody else had anything.
They look like normal situations
All
that
right.
we've had before us
All right.
before.
I'm
Businesses
fine.
that aren't here anymore and
I'm fine with that. Okay.
personal
So I'll
property.
second.
This isn't-
Yeah, I'll second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 5, report of the purchasing manager. Consideration with possible action on a request for approval to purchase 51 mobile and portable Motorola radios for the Green Bay Police Department from Motorola, ACOM for $178,978.
Motion to approve to get it on the table.
Second.
Got a motion and a second for discussion?
Yep.
All right,
Huh? Just looking at printers on here.
no printers.
No printers.
I could feel your eyes burning a hole into the back of my skull.
Not at all, not at all.
No,
I
no,
love the
I'm
challenge.
glad that you were there to answer the questions. I
Yeah.
do appreciate it.
Yes.
So, all right.
All right.
Any questions here?
So we bid this out, we bid it as a Motorola radio or Motorola radios that are compliant with the Brown County system. We discussed the benefits of Motorola at least 4 times in the last few months. And both police and fire feel that the benefits of Motorola outweigh the cost savings of a lesser brand. We still bid it out, and we are receiving some discounts from Baycom that are not part of the Wisconsin Counties Association. In this case, they gave us a break on some programming costs. So there's a little bit of benefit. Still asking for competitive bids, although it is a Motorola specification.
What would the savings be from, as you put it, those lesser brands?
I haven't looked lately, Alder Sladek, but it's probably in the area of 10%.
I continue to be troubled by this captivity to Motorola that we have. How can we get out of it?
I think that, first of all, there are other radios on the Brown County system that have been approved and are being used by other agencies. Both our fire chief and police chief feel that Motorola offers a safety factor for the officers, and we talked about that at the last meeting. There is, and Jason, maybe you want to address that, there's some feedback on the Motorola system that identifies the location of the message sender, and that can help in a rescue situation. Other radios don't have that feature. That probably, I would think, chief, the biggest reason that they prefer the Motorola.
Yes, sir. What Rick was referencing, I'm Jason Babin, network technician with the police department. Essentially the man-down feature, so when an emergency notification is put out, it'll, depending on the system and the configuration, it'll allow you to identify the user that, once that radio goes down, it'll say who it is that is actually notifying. So if we have an officer go down, we'll be able to identify who it is, last notification, things like that.
So that applies to handheld units.
Yes, sir.
Is there any advantage to Motorola over the others for non-handheld units?
For the mobile unit, sir? The reason why we would, particularly for this purchase, is we're looking at outfitting radios into our command bus, which already has some Motorola radios in it. We'd like to standardize the deployment for that equipment in that scenario. Now, the rest of our fleet is all Motorola. We have 65 Motorola radios throughout our fleet. So for the overall standardization, we have a standard configuration with each set of equipment that would be ideal for us, for our officers, for familiarity, things like that.
So this involves $180,000 purchase limited to Motorola, non-competitive. pretty soon here, we're gonna talk about borrowing. In the borrowing request, there's about another 150,000. Now, I suspect is all gonna go to Motorola as well. I really would like to find a way not to be captive for items like this, to actually have some competition with others. Can you tell me, Rick, more about the vendor number 2 here, which is the Wisconsin counties? How does that operate?
That's the Wisconsin counties. So Motorola is available on used to be the NASPO contract or the WISCA contract. That's a national contract that's used by states and government agencies throughout the country. Motorola crafted that into basically the same pricing, but it was customized for the Wisconsin Counties Association because of the rebanding that happened many years ago. It's the same contract pricing. I believe that the only thing that changed was just the way that the purchase order is written. The pricing is the same as it is with the national contract.
Okay. So I have a question, is that pricing visible?
Yes,
So that pricing is visible to Baycom? I was just looking that Baycom is about 0.3 to 0.5% underneath the Wisconsin county's pricing on every one of these items. So, but they,
Because
so
we
they
have
know what the response is gonna be to the bid from the Wisconsin county system?
on this bid, and I think Baycom is trying to be as good a partner as possible without breaking their contract with Motorola. So they're the authorized Wisconsin dealer for Motorola radios. In fact, we received a formal letter, is it Nielsen or Frank's?
Frank's.
Frank's is also a Motorola dealer, but they refuse to compete under the WCA contract against Baycom. I mean, those are contractual agreements. Baycom has the territory. Baycom did, they charged us, I believe, initially we were going to charge us 75 cents per radio for programming, and they discounted that about $17 per radio, I believe is a good faith effort to show some sort of savings. And that's speculation on my part. So they provided a budget quote to Jason or to Randy Frailing for this purchase. We still went out for an official bid, and when they did bid it, they discounted that programming, which is a value added by Baycom, and it's not part of the Motorola contract. So a minor savings. That accounts for that small percent savings.
If you were given direction by the council to find an alternative, to put some competition in this matter, how would you go about it?
Well, it would depend. First, I would take a look at what sort of competing products are out there, sir, and request bids from those, request quotes from those individual companies. Typically, if we reach directly to a manufacturer, they'll point us to a local dealer. So, with a purchase that we made last year, they pointed us to Nielsen Communications for the E.F. Johnson radios that we had. There are other various dealers and vendors that are out there, and that's essentially what we do, is we can go to the manufacturer, and then they will point us to a local dealer. We'll make contact with the local dealer and request a quote with identical features from each of those sets.
Okay. And did you say that there are other agencies that are using different brands of radios in this area? Did I hear that from you?
Yes. Yeah. Who is the guy that heads up the Brown County Communications?
It was John Langton, we took him,
Chuck?
yeah, Colin Peltier.
There are other municipalities or agencies within Brown County that use other than Motorola radios.
Have you had any discussion with any of those operators?
Yes, sir. And we had previously purchased E.F. Johnson radios ourselves and tried those out. The difficulties that we ran into is all the equipment that we had previously and all the training that we had paid for. I mean, we've tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment and training geared towards Motorola. So when it comes to planning down the road for cost savings, things like that, we can do all these things and have the spare parts on hand for Motorola, whereas with the E.F. Johnson, it's almost a one-off. So then it comes to a whole new set of tools, a whole new set of training, which the issue we ran into there was training was not offered to the end customer. It was only offered to the dealers. So with Motorola, we We have access to the tools that they have for downloading, updating, and maintaining service on all of our equipment, but with other vendors, that's not possible. We either have to send it back to their depot for repair, or essentially send it to the dealership by us being able to repair it ourselves in-house.
How should why should I think about this differently than I think about squad cars? You know, we're not married to one brand of squad car. As years go by, when it's time to replace them, we'll look at alternatives. We went from Fords to Dodges. Now we're talking about going to SUVs. Isn't the same institutional knowledge among the mechanics for the automobiles comparable to what you have with radios? They have parts and they have manuals that would have to be replaced if we went to something different.
Yes, sir, except in this case, I would view it more as if there was one car company that had been providing this for decades and decades and built that knowledge and refined their product to that point. They understand that, our primary purpose, my goal in what I do is to increase officer safety. That is my primary objective. So when they start implementing features like what we had talked about with the officer down, and when they alert the emergency beacon, when that happens, then when we are notified about that officer, if it takes seconds off that time that we have to react and get to that officer, then that is what we would look for. Anything that we can do to shorten that time and get our officers the support that we can as quickly as possible.
So you would put that in a specification for any radio now?
Yes, sir.
I see. I don't have anything more.
Chief Layton, did you want to add to the conversation?
Yeah, because we're on the system, I'd certainly like to add my input once again on this. Alderman Slidek, I think we've talked about, I certainly understand your concern about the no bid and so forth, but I think that the committee really needs to understand the issues besides what's already been raised. From the safety standpoint, the radio identifier is a big thing for us, but it's not the only thing. Our firefighters work in environments that are pitch black. And so I would be incredibly concerned about mixing our radios. Each one of our individuals are issued a radio when they're on an apparatus. And I would be absolutely against mixing the stock of radios for this reason. They are trained in those environments. We spend a lot of time training our guys in those environments to be able to manipulate their radios in zero visibility under the worst of conditions, because that's what they face. And I don't want to have them worried, trying to teach them two sets of that, which one do I have, and fumbling around trying to get to something that they need to tell us about emergency traffic if they're in trouble. I would be absolutely adamantly opposed to that for that reason. I think the second thing is that I've been at this for 36 years now, and I've used probably 6 or 7 different brands of radios in my time. By far, in my experience, Motorola is the gold standard. And of course, we're going to pay a little bit for that. But when it comes down to reliability, when it comes down to functioning, when you know what's hitting the fan, I'm very confident in Motorola. I'm not so confident in some of the other brands out there. Police Department tried these E.F. Johnson radios. I don't think they had a very good experience with them. Quite honestly, I don't believe they had a good experience with them, and so I would be adamantly opposed against that. Third thing, yeah, we could go out and Randy Freiling could buy the software and all the things to tune some other set of radios, but you're making an investment in that. You got to update the radios. Our radios have to be tuned. We talked about this the last time, every year. The analog radios back in the day, they were analog radios, and you pretty much got a crystal in them, and they stay right there as far as the radio frequency. The digital radios, they wander. In other words, they're tuned, but as we use them, they start to get off tune, like a guitar. I guess that's the way I would describe it. And we have to go back and retune them every year. If we didn't have Randy doing that, because we have looked at it, because I will tell you that all the fire departments in Brown County use Motorola radios, every single one of them. So I'm not sure if there's police departments that are using something else, but I can tell you that every single fire department is using the Motorola APX 7000 radio. To try to tune those, we got some quotes from both Baycom and from Franks to tune a radio every year. We're at $100 plus per radio. I've got well over 100 portable radios. And so Randy's able to do that in-house very quickly because he has the process down. And so we're talking about rebuying like second sets of software, second sets of tuning equipment, second sets of everything. That's really kind of, to me, a minor issue. I would be adamantly opposed, based on quality and safety, to mixing our radios. You know, Motorola got the bid in 2009 in Brown County. I wasn't here. If time somebody else had gotten it, I would guess we'd be stuck with those radios as well, because I'm just not a fan of trying to mix those radios back and forth. My experience has told me that that doesn't work very well, and I'd be concerned about my firefighter safety. So I just wanted to make that.
Thank you.
Alderman Swear.
Thank you, Chair. I think that's what I was leaning toward. I guess a couple things, Chief, like the shelf life on these, or I could ask Rick, what is the shelf life on something like this?
2002. right here.
2002, okay, so it's just a matter of calibrating?
It's a matter of auto-tuning it, and actually mine can't be auto-tuned anymore. 'Cause there's
Okay.
it's that old.
I guess that's one of my concerns as far as updating. this
One of the
type
things I want to make sure that the council, the committee understands, that we bought an auto-tuner for our department as well. And Jason takes care of our radios every year, auto-tuning our radios. EF Johnson's, we can't. They were supposed to release
Last summer.
last summer, and they still have not released a software program to auto-tune those radios. So when those radios are auto-tuned, the officer's reception is
They don't
that
work.
much worse. It doesn't work.
Okay. Well, I think, well, I appreciate the comments. You know, I look at safety, and Chief, I appreciate the comments that you did make, and I've been leaning toward that as well. I appreciate Alderman Slotnick's comments, but I do think that the safety, and, you know, I think there's tendencies to think sometimes that when you look at some products coming forward, that there might be a bit of a monopoly at times, not only on something like this, but other purchases as well. And my bottom line is that if it gets safe, if there's safety, and also I think there would be a cost savings on the fact that if you had to retool with new radios, different product, there's different expenses that come into play that we might not even be fully aware of. So with that, I'm leaning that way, and I appreciate the comments that were made. Thank you.
I would just ask briefly about our relationship with Baycom. They've been in business in Green Bay for a long time. Are we talking about their office over on Radisson? Is this?
Yes, sir.
What kind of relationship do we have as far as any kind of service issues, warranty replacements? I mean, they've been a vendor that's been working with the local municipalities for some time. I mean, is that relationship pretty solid?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Baycom's actually here.
Hello.
Look at there.
Yeah, I've been with Baycom 28 years. so-
I'm sorry, could you, yeah, if you could just come up. I'm not, if the committee is okay, I'd rather not open the floor. We'll just,
Still just,
sure, if you just want to come up, just introduce
Sure.
yourself.
I'm Al Cuevista with Baycom. I'm the public safety sales rep for them for this area.
Okay.
And, I handle the two-way radio equipment and also Panasonic Tough Books. But, so we are totally supporting public safety in every product they look at, from video cameras, in-car video solutions to, to radios. So, that's the business we're in.
I like that you're in District 6.
of course.
No. Okay. Was there any questions from the committee?
Are you related to Jack Coivisto?
Yes, my father.
You don't have to
Is
put that in the
that-
minutes.
No, I don't. Sorry. Sorry.
All right. Great. Thank you. Is there any other discussion then from the committee or from staff?
No.
Okay, well, we do have a motion and we do have a second on the floor to approve this. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
And we have a 3-1. Item number 6 is consideration with possible action on a request by the Common Council and City Departments to review and approve the 2017 bonding request. I'll just send this one over to staff. And
Great, I will start with, in your package, you will see a summary of the bonding requests that were submitted by the department heads. Second page is a little more detailed. The first page just says the equipment, there's some additional detail on the second page that breaks down the specific items. And within your packet, then there are also 2 graphs. One is borrowing history for the last 10 years, and then also outstanding debt for the last 10 years. And as you can see, all of the department heads are here to talk through of their items.
well, the first question I would ask is, have these requests gone through all the committees then and been approved at committee?
What I can tell you
Before
is
it
I
came
know
here, they went through before they came here.
DPW goes to the committee, Parks
Yeah.
went to committees, police and fire do not go to committee.
Right.
Police and fire come to this committee, municipal court came to this committee, and community and academic development comes to this. So it's really Parks and DPW that went through some committee, sanitary and storm also.
Okay. Yes, Alderman Slide.
Diana, I'm looking at the 10-year history of outstanding debt graph that you
Yes.
gave us. And it appears to me that that there's been a fair amount of growth in the last 5 years of the outstanding debt, and that that's being driven by the other sources category. Can you provide some perspective on what's driving that?
Yes. Let me grab some of my additional detail here. Other sources could include TIF, it could include, mostly TIF, or if we took out debt for either the Northland, or if we took out for, basically for TIF projects. And,
Sanitary storm.
what's that?
Sanitary storm.
Sanitary storm also, thank you.
So over the last 5 years, as I said, you can see that that's ramped up a fair amount. Has that been equally split over TIF, sanitary, and storm, or is there one of the three of those driving this?
No, I don't have that specific details right in front of me. I definitely could have that for council. I could get that information, the split of all the items that make up the other sources.
Because the total debt, the green bar, total debt outstanding, the green bars on this chart, show things are pretty level, from 2007 through 2012, and then the other debt started driving things after that. If you could provide a breakdown
Yes, I
of
can get you more.
those components in the other debt, TIF,
Yep.
and storm and sanitary, and what's happened over the last 5 years with those, that would help me better understand why we're on the upslope.
Okay.
Alderman Slotnick, you were also elected in 2012. It could be your pension for spending.
Kind of resist.
I'll point out that we use some of the stadium excess sales tax to pay down debt,
Yeah.
but you wouldn't see it here.
Yes, Alderman Stoyer.
Thank you, Chair. Well, just looking at the other sources, as Alder Slotnick brought up, and it has gone up a little bit over time, so there, Diana was talking about TIF and sanitary and storm, and granted, she said it gets some of that, but I would think that over the last number of years, at least since I've been on council, we've had a number of TIF districts come into play, and I don't know if that's something that would be listed as well as the numbers that have come into play over that 4-year period.
What I can tell you is in 2013, the large jump there was the KI Convention Center of $24.8 million.
That's right.
Okay.
CC.
So is there any other indicators over the last 3 or 4 years that jumped, per se? I'm done in a minute. Was there anything else? I mean, you mentioned the KI Convention Center came in 2013. Were there any other projects?
Schreiber Foods.
Schreiber.
Actually, I was just going to ask Tawny if you had a,
Well, remember, there was a 3.5 bonding for the pool as well,
Okay.
as part of that.
And that was 2014
Nope,
or
that's
13?
2016.
16?
And 4.7 went on for the Northland in 2015. So I apologize for not having that breakdown, but I can certainly get that.
Yeah,
I have the
yeah.
information, it's just, I don't.
If you can get us that breakdown, that'd be helpful.
Absolutely.
And with the names of that as
I
well.
will.
I would like to note that on the previous page, the graph you show of the 10-year borrowing history, that shows the KI Center in 2014, not 2013. And you said the bump in 2013 was driven by KI Center.
Yeah, this report says the year of issue was December of 13. So that's the detail I have in front of me. So
Carrie.
You see what I'm talking about on the previous page?
yes. Borrowing was in, it looks like it was in 14.
That's fine. Why don't we drop the matter for now, if you can just get us that
Absolutely, I will
detail, that'd be
definitely get you
helpful.
the details.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to hold this up for 2 weeks, and that way we can better understand when she brings back the report.
Is there any time
Dates and-
sensitivity to this?
Yes, there is.
There is? Okay.
Many drivers of them, a lot of them have equipment in there, and if they're gonna be approved, they're items that they typically would have had for January 1st in their 2017 budget. And at this point, some of them have long lead times, so at this point, they've not been able to put their purchase orders out for some of the, let's say, sanitary trucks. There's long lead times, and so they've been pushed back now already 4 to 5 months on what they normally would have done for purchasing of equipment.
You're saying that's for DPW right now? Are there other departments that are
Parks
pressed?
got equipment.
Parks as well?
Parks is looking
Okay.
for their
All right.
equipment.
Everyone's got equipment.
All right.
Anyone with their
I'm just
equipment.
checking.
Please.
Police? Do I hear
Yes,
a
Alderman.
fire?
Alderman Slotnick?
Yes, Diana, one other question I have is, does each line item in this summary meet the requirements of our debt policy? In that the debt will not be for a longer period than what's listed as useful life?
What happens is I had sent out the information to Baird and Foley and Associates, and they came back and they were recommending that 14 million of this, if we were to go move forward, 14 million it would be GO debt, and 2.7, the difference would be a 5-year note. So anything that has a useful life that would be probably well under 10 years would go on as a note, and it would be a much shorter, so it would have to be paid off in the next 5 years.
So something listed here is having a useful life of 3 to 5 years. We can fund that on a 5-year note, and that is compliant with our policy? I mean, the policy is pretty clear. I mean, let's see if we can find the exact words about, about the debt not extending longer than the useful life of the motion to approve.
Yes, what I want to explain on that first page, as you see, the total request is in the middle column with 17.1. And I wanted to just make sure that we were clear that the items in the far right column are just items that were, during the 2017 budget, were basically told to be moved to bonding. So these are some of the same items that they had asked for at budget time and that were pulled from the budget and that were recommended to go to bonding. So that doesn't really answer your question, but that's why some of these have showed up on here. We wouldn't typically bond for something that's got a 3 to 5 year useful life that typically would have been a budget item. But in this case, these items were pulled from the 2017 budget, and that's how they appeared on this list.
But I don't think the items with the 3 to 5 year life are in that category, are they?
Yes, it's the $59,000 for community and economic development. It's the equipment, $59,000. Well, the subtotal doesn't match.
I have no further questions.
Okay, and just to keep the conversation here, I mean, I think that we need to have a separate communication put in, or just that we can just ask staff regarding the trend that started in 2012 of increase in the budget, come back as a separate report. I can see how it can affect the request in the 2017 budget to see where that trend is, and when we look at this bonding request, to see if there's something that we can cap or steer away from or change what we're doing. But as far as the request that's in front of us right now, are there any other questions from the committee regarding anything specific in the 2017 bonding request? Alderman Dwayne.
Yeah, I didn't see anything that was, that I need to bring up now, but I think I'm gonna change my motion because I think it's very important that for staff, they all went through the proper protocol in getting this through. So I want to make a motion that we approve that, and then we can do, like you said, we can make another motion to get the answers that Tom is looking for. So my motion is to approve this 2017 bonding.
We have a motion, can I get a second?
I would second that.
Well, second, I'm going to ask for a little more discussion
Yep.
quickly. There's another item coming up on the agenda here regarding a budget task force. Anybody I have talked to has been very receptive to that. You know, I don't know what the action of the committee will be tonight, but this will be one of those situations, I think, where the trend in the increasing budget, it'd be great to be reviewed by an outside, you know, whether it be a standing committee or what it be, you know. I think that's a good place for it to go.
So maybe on that point,
Well, we've got a motion and a second right now to approve the request. Did you want to make a separate motion on this, Larry?
I don't know if there's anybody out in the audience that would like to speak to this matter as well, so I would make a motion on the floor.
Well, this is just to approve the
Should we just
bonding.
approve it?
Yeah, that's.
But if
you'll
he
be
wants
talking-
if he wants to speak to the bonding,
Yeah, okay.
we have a motion and a second to
Yeah.
open the floor
Yep.
for interest party. If you could just step up, your name and
I know
address.
the protocol, thank you.
Great.
Richard Perrins, 1402 Kellogg Street. Mr. Stoyer is my alderman, and we have frequent discussions. Anyway, and I know some of the other members. My whole point about appearing here tonight is bonding or borrowing is not necessarily in the taxpayer's best interest in this community. Spending should be looked at a little differently. And, you know, the question brought up about a 3 to 5 year physical life or for things that you even consider putting a bond up for that, to me is just poor money management. And because it will fall back on us, the taxpayers. And I own a couple of properties. I'm not a big taxpayer, but, you know, it doesn't matter. We all pay. And I think that just as a matter of course, this is not the way we should be running our city. So that's really my comment to this, and that's pretty much a general comment, but I appreciate your allowing me to speak to the matter. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
Absolutely.
Looks like that we're on a
That's
resident.
it.
Yeah.
Okay,
We'll make
well, I have a
a-
motion that
accept
close the
motion.
floor.
Yep, second.
Motion second to return regular order. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Alderman Nenning, yes.
You know, I just make one comment on this. You know, I think if we had seen this kind of detail at budget time, we might have made some decisions to include some of the equipment that has a shorter life in the budget. But we didn't see that kind of detail at the budget. The budget was placed before us at either none or very little equipment in there. And, when I asked for it, I did get a list of equipment that had been taken out of the budget for consideration of the bond issue, but never got this kind of detail about the useful life of it. And I think that's one of the things that we need to ask when we're working on the budget, is get more detail.
Well, and at that time too, you know, remember we were coming in, I think, on the mill rate 15 cents over previous year, and it was directed to staff to make more cuts, and equipment were those cuts. And when that came to us, we saw those requests after those cuts were gone, and I don't think any staff member kept it a secret from us that they were going to come forward with these requests at bonding times because it's things we needed. But it was so important to keep the mill rate down. So we cut and cut and cut, and then we fixed it with stadium tax excess anyway. So yeah, we absolutely could have left it there and still fixed it with stadium excess tax and not be talking about, you know, bonding on 3 to 5 year lifetime stuff now. So as Mr. Perrins had said, it all comes back to us, and this has come right back to us again, so.
May I add one point to this?
Sorry.
No,
Or not.
no, it's-
Got a motion to open the floor?
Motion open the floor. I would say.
It'll be very quick.
Sure.
This affect, I mean, I was in the mortgage business for 20-plus years in this city. The taxes in this city affect a great deal about people coming in here. We want industries and things to grow here. If we continue to keep high property taxes without making an effort, and I don't have the answers to it. You're elected to do that. I'm elected to gripe about it. But anyway, that's really the reason I came was for that. I mean, it really does affect our community in many ways. And, I mean, we just approved school bondings, all kinds of things. And you just keep asking more and more of the citizens, and the ability to pay is a very important factor to this. So that drives people from choosing this community or another community, and we want them here. So that's the end of it. Sorry, that was a point that I forgot to make earlier. Thank
Okay,
you.
Richard, I was just, if I could, you were saying that you had no answers or solutions per se right now on this? I mean, we struggle
No,
with this.
but, you know, you've asked me to talk, I mean, there's such a wide range of areas to try and, I mean, city streets, patching them, all kinds of things. No,
Well, I mean, we're willing to listen, so.
yeah, it's a general point, and I don't mean to take up the committee's time, but thank you very much.
Alderman Dwayne?
So I understand where Mr. Parents is coming from. Every year, our budget seems to be different, and for many different reasons, we see cuts all the time. And then after our budget gets through, they come forward and they need this equipment. If we're gonna run our city in a positive way and get things done, we need that equipment, whether it's equipment or anything else. And so we're stuck with this dilemma at the end of the year all the time with bonding. Joe, I don't know how many times you brought it up and we talked about it, about anytime we can pay ahead of time instead of bonding, we should be doing it. But we're always seem to be strapped. And I mean, you brought it up a lot of times. And
Why
I've
does
talked
that
about
happen, Tom?
Our budget, I mean, it just,
Yeah, I know,
a
but.
shortful, for
Yeah,
many different
but
reasons.
there's a
Mr.
reason for
Parents.
that, and
Yeah,
that's
I
what,
don't,
I think the community has a right to know. Why is the planning not further out for these kinds of items? I mean, I plan for my house, my,
no,
all
I
of those
understand,
things.
Richard, I'm not here
I
to
know
argue
they're
with
gonna
you.
have, you know, certain things repaired or whatnot.
Yeah,
or
I'm not here
purchase
to argue,
something.
I understand what you're
Okay,
saying.
that's the point to it, so.
Chief Lee?
Sorry.
I'd just like to point out that several weeks ago at your last committee meeting, the fire department submitted a 10-year look at what we're
Right.
going to be. Based on the fact that, you know, I want you to know that we compiled that list based on experience, not based on, this is great to have, just based on, these are things that, this is our inventory, and based on the use and the history, you know, there's a point where the cost of maintenance on a capitalized basis crosses buying new, and we try to watch that all the time. Now, fire engine at Station 4, for instance, will last a little longer because it's not quite as busy, but Station 2's engine is going to get replaced every 6 or 7 years because they run a ton of calls and it gets beat up very quickly. So the committee has a 10-year look now from the fire department. I hope with an explanation that you can understand. We projected out cost increases in there on every single piece of apparatus that we have, hoping that the committee can look at that and go, we know what's coming from the fire department over the next 10 years. Short of something crazy happening that we can't foresee, that's what we'll be looking for.
Alderman Square?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that, Chief, and that was also mentioned, Director Grenier, too, and you've mentioned over time where you will replace certain vehicles, you plan for it, if you will, and replace a couple here, a couple there, rather than trying to replace pell-mell at one time. So I appreciate that effort as well. So I think, you know, I mean, from what I've seen from the departments, a lot of times is that they're asking for equipment, and many times it's timing, if you will. I know budgets are tight in that, but I do appreciate that as well. So we do look at that as well. So that's all.
Okay. Is there any other discussion from staff? Committee? All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor to accept this request. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Okay. Okay, we'll move this forward to council. Item number 7 is consideration with possible action on a request by Alderman Vanderleest to create a budget task force to address high city property taxes in Green Bay. Question of staff first on this. Maybe no or not, but if we were going to create a standing committee, or even if it was like a committee that met quarterly or bi-monthly, what is the process to create that committee? I mean, who does that go through? Does that go through legal?
I guess I would actually start with the mayor's office and or legal to.
Create an ordinance?
I don't know how the standing committees, I know they go through, I would assume it'd have to come through the council, but I don't know how that gets created. I'd have to find out.
Alderman Dwayne, and we've. added
Yeah, we
some
would,
committees,
we've done that too with deer hunting and stuff like that. We would just form a committee and the mayor would assign, or I would help him assign people to that committee. That's what we've done in the past.
Okay. Alderman Vanderleest, did you want to speak to this?
Thank you, gentlemen, for allowing me to come up and speak. I've got a little information I want to give you right off the bat here. Just give you some facts and figures.
Great, thank you.
This kind of gives you a breakdown of, you just take one, pass them on. Look at the very bottom of this view, little tiny one, you kind of see where our city of Green Bay fits in. The reason I'm here to discuss this is that it's better to get a little early start on it. I think the last budget we got into, we didn't have much of a, I know in the last few months, we haven't had a lot of time to discuss too many things. We've been pretty busy, so my request is that it get started a little bit early so that when September rolls around, that we'll have a little more heads up on, what we can do to help our budget in the city of Green Bay, the taxpayers as well. And that's the main reason I come forward with this. It says here, the city of Green Bay has high property taxes. I think this should be addressed through a budget task force to identify areas the city must lower the cost in. Everything should be reviewed. The task force would come back to the mayor and city council in August with a summary report. The city of Green Bay should hold the line on property taxes so that we can be more competitive with nearby metro communities. Yes, Green Bay offers more services and amenities. There is a limit to how much folks are willing to spend on property taxes before individuals start purchasing out of the city of Green Bay. I've had realtors share with me that nearly half of the buyers will request not to be included in the city of Green Bay due to the high property taxes. This can be a problem. If you look at like that one sheet that's got very fine print there, you'll kind of see where we check off. And Mr. Moore is a realtor, and I'm sure that he's aware of, the lower rates. I know on the bonding part of it for the schools and the county part of it, that pretty much washes the same. But if you look on Green Bay, it says here we're at 8.85 per thousand. Alloy's at 7.22 per thousand. De Pere at 6.74, Ashwaubenon 6.12, and then Swamico 4.47, and Hobart is 4.42, and Bellevue is at 2.27. Grant you, we have a lot of, in these areas that are less tax rate. These are, some of them are a lot of our new subdivisions and what have you. So a lot of people are moving that way. But I guess the main concern would be that we try to adjust some of the things that are going on as far as we take in a lot of money. I don't know exactly. I'd have to ask our finance person that how much money we actually set aside per year. Do we take in over $100 million?
Yes, but not all in taxes.
I know half of it is like in taxes.
About over 50 million is taxes, yes.
So we got $100 million budget, basically, is that correct?
Yes.
Pretty close, or maybe a little, probably a little bit
General,
over.
yes.
So I think with $100 million, if you're running a business with $100 million of positive cash flow coming in, I think that you'd want to, I don't know what is the amount that we set aside, ma'am, that we set aside each year? Let's say for a rainy day fund, did we set 5% of our 100 million aside?
For the fund balance?
Well, I'm talking about actual money that we'd have right on hand right now if we needed that money for an emergency. Is there any plan?
Well, I guess we have money that's sitting in, we always have money sitting in investment accounts that could be pulled at any point, and many others are put in just money markets that could be pulled.
My question is, how much did the city set aside, let's say for 2016, how much did we set aside in an account that would give us a nest egg, per se.
The
That would be our
general
fund balance.
Yeah.
That would be our, what's in our fund balance. We don't have an account set aside for
Right.
just specifically for rainy days.
What is our fund balance, do you know offhand? You can tell us the next council, man, we need to, pick your brain that close. It would be interesting just
I
to,
don't have it.
in other words, what I'd like to know is how much we're actually setting aside each year of the $100 million in that fund balance. I think that, if we have capital programs coming about, that there should be a money set aside each year. If it's 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, I think that would be 5% of what we take in, I think should go right into our fund balance. Personally, that's how I feel. 5% is actually a low amount. I know some businesses run on 1% and 2% as far as how much money they set aside. Strong businesses will set aside at least 10% of their balance that they take in. So that when they do capital improvements, they have the money on hand. That's what I'm getting at. I think that we could look at, and I don't know exactly how that, we talked about how Mr. Moore brought about how this task force would be presented or how it would be approved or whatever. But I think that the task force would be a good tool to see where we could, better manage what we got coming in. And good management, I know the fire department, the police department, they're all players here in the city of Green Bay. And I know they have a lot of needs, and the same way with Department of Public Works. We want our streets clean, we want want good police and all the rest, and the park department as well. Every agency I know is a tool of the city, and it makes our city what it is today. What I'm asking to do with the task force would be to address some of the issues that we have, see where we can make some positive changes. And, nobody talks about it too much on council because we just got a lot of other things going, but I think that if we did bring it forward before the budget time where we wouldn't have to say, well, we gotta raise taxes again. You can see where we're at on those sheets that I gave you. And I know we got a lot of services that we provide above and beyond some other communities. We have a vaster, we have more people in our community. Green Bay is the biggest one of the bunch. In Brown County, it's pretty much the biggest one. So what I'm asking is that we could look at in ways how we could save tax dollars, use them to the best of our advantage. And my proposal would be to hold the line on the taxes, for the next few years and, see where we can't make some improvements. I know last year we had a little bit of money, that came from the stadium tax, and that helped, so we didn't have so the taxpayers weren't, assessed, in other words, out of their own. It came out of the excess funds from the stadium. But I would like to see, some positive decisions and choices on how we can, make a better impact with our dollar and save the taxpayers and just make our community more attractive. And that's my point.
And I think, referring this, to staff to, we should give you some direction as far as structure or, goals, but I would like, in my opinion here is.
Sure. My little paper that I gave there, as far as, how it would be done, that's just a summary. And how you gentlemen, you get on with the finance committee, and we'll take your judgment as,
Well, I'm all in favor of public-private partnerships, because there's an awful lot of people in the city that don't have a lick of interest in running for alderman that are smarter than an awful lot of us that serve. That, would, I think, be very beneficial to be on these standing committees. Look, I mean, the way I envisioned this, and maybe this task force could put it together, is you get this group put together and we actually create a standing committee that would report to the finance committee quarterly, working with our staff, and report quarterly on a status of the budget on a quarterly basis, or every 4 months even. So that when we do get to budget time, we know where we're standing. And look, every year we get to September, October, we start asking, hey, how are we looking for the year? Are we going to come in under? Is there going to be any excess? Because we're already working on the 2018 or 2000. We're working a year ahead on our budget. And one of the first questions that's in our mindset is there going to be some leftover money that we can offset that budget with by making some purchases this year and cleaning it up? And I think that a task force maybe could find some efficiencies. If we had a standing committee that met quarterly even, and maybe that would be something that task force could create. So I don't know, I mean, it's just an idea on some structure on how it might work, but I certainly agree that a public-private partnership could be very beneficial to it's an extra set of eyes, to kind of look it over.
What's that?
Alderman Slayer?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, John, for coming forward with this. Has anybody checked with other communities what they have done? I mean, I haven't per se heard of this, but I'm not saying, I think it's a good idea. But have you?
I haven't.
You haven't checked
pursued the
anything
other
else out?
communities,
Or, I think a public-private partnership would be a good thing. I don't know, like I said, like Alderman Morris said, is many times over the last 5 years, we scramble, in their budget time, and the books are thick, and we try to go through them as well as we can, and we end up cherry picking half the time on some of this. It would be nice to come in solid into a budget and just say, we feel good about this, and then move forward, and we wouldn't waste a lot of time nitpicking and cherry picking. That's not a whole lot of fun, and a lot of times we have to do that, so. I appreciate your effort on this, so that's all I have right now.
Yes, Alderman Slayer?
I welcome this idea. Probably to the disappointment of Alderman Stoyer.
Oh, really?
In a $100 million budget with an operation as complex as a city, we're always at budget time going to have to make choices. There are going to be competing needs. So I don't think it's ever going to be simple. However, anything that creates more discussion, which will create more knowledge about the city's finances and how they operate and where the opportunities might be, is something that I welcome. And one caution I would have, and I think I like the idea that Alderman Moore raised about perhaps a standing committee of some sort. The concern I would have is if we launch this to try and do something between now and October, with the focus being for the next budget, I think would fail. I think this needs to have a longer-term orientation to it. And I think this would be an opportunity to engage in some benchmarking, which is something I've always advocated for. My personal opinion is that De Pere would be a good community for us to benchmark against. De Pere is a city. It's got operations on both sides of the river, so it has some of the same constraints on emergency services as we do. But you look at their mill rate at $6.74, it's over $2 less than ours. Now, some of that might simply be due to different property valuations. I mean, if the same house in De Pere is worth more than the same house in Green Bay, that would explain some of that difference, but not $2 worth. There's something else there that I think we could learn. So I think proceeding with this idea has a lot of merit.
No, I agree. I would say this is, I'm good. I'm just saying, I don't think it's something that I'd be looking for 2018, but 2019, easily get something together, get the ideas of what you're looking for and bring it forward. But I can answer your question with De Pere, and Joe, I think, and too, with their, if you're looking at the houses that are rated out there, I think De Pere, out east De Pere and west De Pere are much different. But not only that, the size of our task force, our fire and police department, significantly different. The sizes are a lot larger. Our parks, our DPW, they don't match. I mean, we're talking hundreds of workers more. So that's the difference there. It's only $2, but if you try match player to player, I mean, that's a $2 difference. I mean, they're much smaller.
Well, I wouldn't suggest matching player to player.
I'm talking about what we pay in payrolls compared to what they pay in payrolls, their size of their police department compared to our size to, their taxes, what they generate to ours, I mean.
But if you look at it on a per person basis, yes, they have a smaller population, but proportionally, they're spending less per person.
No, I understand that.
And we ought to understand why. I think one of the key words that I heard Alderman Vanderleest use is choices. We should understand where we differ versus other communities, and we should understand why. So if we spend more than another community does on parks, That should be a conscious decision, that we understand how much more we spend, what we get for that, and we choose to do that because that's what the people in this city want.
Oh, they might have 12 parks, we have 77 or 74. How many firemen do we have in the city of Green Bay?
Total staff is 198,
Okay, and what do you think De Pere has?
35.
Okay. Same as the police department.
But they're servicing a much smaller area.
Well, yeah, but
So
that's
when
why their
you- when
budget's
you-
gonna be
When you
cheaper.
put it on a per resident, or a per parcel, or a per acre basis, there's some reason these numbers are different. And it's not just that we're bigger and they're smaller.
I'd be curious to see, you know, the
Yeah.
history of
I'd have to see
health
it.
insurance, retirement.
I
you know,
understand
those
where
kind
you're
of
coming from
things
now.
too, you know, negotiated over the year. Alderperson Dorf?
You know, I agree that there's probably reasons that there's a difference between De Pere and Green Bay, and I'd like to know what those are. And I wonder if it's worth also looking at cities that are similar in size, because that might give us more realistic idea of what a city of our size does spend with their mill rate. And to the point that people choose to live here or in De Pere or Ashwaubenon. That's why it's really valuable to also gather that kind of information. But are we hugely different than Janesville or Madison or Racine or Kenosha? I don't know. And it wouldn't take much to find out, right?
Chief Lynn?
I just want to make one point. Diana's actually looking at the book, the Wisconsin Taxpayer Alliance publishes a book every year. I get it. And they basically look at fire protection, police protection, cost of public works. And I can tell you, because I look at it every year, because I want to make sure that I'm competitive. Straightforward. The 17 largest cities in Wisconsin, I think fire department's funded at the 9th or 10th level. So we're the third largest city in the state. But in 16 or 15, I guess that's a 15 book.
16, it happens to be a 16.
Is it 16? So I've got that same book. I think we're like funded at the 9th. We're number 9 out of 17, but we're the third largest city. So that, and I think that if you look at, and I'm not opposed to this idea whatsoever, that's not what I'm saying, but there's one of the benchmarks that we use, or I use, that I've looked at, that says, I think we're being efficient.
Well, gentlemen, I thank you for your time, and I think more discussion is good, and maybe we'll, at budget time, maybe we won't have quite so much pressure.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion, we send this to staff, and have staff contact John and sit down and, you know, go over what he's looking for, and see what we can and can't do, and put something together as a form of a committee, and bring Diana into the picture too.
I'll second for discussion.
Mr. Tom, second for discussion by Mark.
John,
I don't want it to drop.
I just wanted to thank you again. I think one other thing I'd like to see, and I think I've talked to Alderman Slotnick about this in the past too, but you know, when you have a pie chart of what we pay in taxes, you know, the school board, the county, the city, and things like that. I would really, you know, and you can break that down a little bit too, but I'd also like to see our city portion of our tax, what it goes for, what exactly, you know, that piece of the pie. And I know that there are reports and things like that out there, but I think a lot of the citizens would like to see that as well. So that's just a comment I'd like to make.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. This is staff, is for the discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
And none are opposed. Great. Item number 8 is an update on the request for cost estimates on an audit of the 2 HUD payments made by the city to the Northwood project.
Mr. Chairman, I just, well, Andy Nicholson called me and I got an email from Alderman Wery, and they want to make sure that, you know, that it's TIF, it's the HUD, it's everything Green Bay's invested that put, you know, every penny that they sent forward to this North End Hotel. It's just not the HUD, it's a TIF, it's everything.
Right, the way it was, the motion that was approved was, it was specific to the 2 HUD payments, but it definitely can be opened up. There was 3 payments to the North End project. It was the 2 HUD payments, and then there was a 2.5 TIF. So we can certainly open that up and make it the 3 all payments to the North End.
That's my motion before we start.
Has this already been sent out for an RFP? Are we waiting for committee action on that?
What I did was, on Friday, I had sent out an email for a quote or an estimate to 3 local of auditing firms. And I ended up picking 3 that came in. They were part of an RFP back in 2014. Per Rick Jensen, they passed all the background checks and they're well qualified, so that's why we went that route. Happened to be Hawkins Ash, Kerber Rose, and then Shank, who's our current auditor. I did not pick Baker Tilly because they were actually the audit firm for KPH, so I left them alone because they were already involved in that project.
Did they send pricing, or do we need to
No,
send us
and
back with the
so-
request to add TIF to it?
And I can change that, but again, I sent them out on Friday, and from Hawkins, all I got was, they referred it to 2 different people, and they said, Jeff from our Greenville office will be contacting you to get you an estimate. And that was yesterday, haven't heard back from him. Dave Mako at Shank, I will follow up over the weekend with our team and get back to you. That was Friday afternoon, and I haven't heard back from Dave. And at this point, Kerber Rose, someone, Joseph Garolo, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, but he has read my email, but he has not responded. So I have confirmation that the request has been read by the 3 different locations that I have sent it out that I sent out, but I have not gotten any cost estimate back yet.
Mr. Chairman, if I can continue, then that would just mean that, because they haven't gotten back to her, that she can add the TIF and, put that in, have an answer when they come back, because we'll know more by the court case Friday.
Yeah.
So we just receive
with
the
that.
file report.
So receive and place on file?
Or hold it for.
A motion to receive and place on file the update. We'll have to get an update, or yeah, just refer it back and
Yes, refer it back.
come back at the next
I'll
finance
second
meeting.
that.
Motion second. Yes, Alderman Zima.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Chris Weary had left a message for me that he thought we should also look after the document that Mr. Doucette passed around the council. We all just had a small look at, and audit that and see where all that came from, if those are actually real bills that can be supported by checks and things like that. Because we have to know who we're dealing with. We know there's a court case coming up between the feuding parties. But, of course, at some point in time, the council might want to take the bull by the horns and take control of the project and ask for proposals to get the job finished. And you want to know who you're dealing with. You want to know, if people are doing things that are dishonest, and that was the insinuation at the meeting, rather vehemently put forward. I think that's something that we should look into. A prominent person in the project made very serious accusations. And, if that's the case, we have to root these people out of the system. We've got to get a more transparent system, and we've got to feel that we're dealing with people that are above board. And, that's why you're asking for some audits. It might be just running down a rabbit hole. Sometimes audit just shows you if you balance your checkbook correctly or not. It doesn't talk about the propriety of expenditures or anything else. But he brought that up to me, and hence I'm bringing it up to you. I wonder if we can
I was just going to ask Director
investigate
Ellenbecker, they're just going to quote an hourly rate typically with
That's what I would
estimated
expect.
time?
That's what I would expect, that they would be quoting us a rate and maybe an
There's
estimate of
probably
time.
a lot of documentation that needs to be looked at.
Right. I'm sure they're gonna have a lot
I don't
of
know whether
questions.
it's that complicated, but, it's just, it's money that went out and how it was spent. But again,
And it's
how it was
public
spent,
money.
there's a difference between an investigative audit and just an audit of whether the numbers, the checks equal to
Right.
what's been said. It's not about the propriety of the expenditure. But I really feel, as Mr. Weary said to me, I feel strongly that that's a rabbit hole that I don't think is a rabbit hole. I think it might be something that's of interest to us. And if that was all poppycock, all well and good, I'll be the first to say, Mr. Doucette, you invented numbers to us. But it seems to me, if you're a man who claims himself to be the sole owner of the property, that's very questionable. You know, work itself out Friday or whenever after that. But we might want to take the bull by the horns before that gets settled. That's something that could go on for a long time. So I think we're interested in seeing the project completed and have somebody with honor that is not inventing numbers. And that was a serious allegation. I'd like to have your committee include that in like an investigative audit of those numbers. Are there actually checks? Can that be proven? I had a feeling if those numbers were correct, that was used to qualify for the loan, it means that maybe a man was making things up. If he makes things up there, what's he making up with the rest of his billing? The second, I should say the third payment made from the city, I'm interested in how that money was used. We know where the first one went, right? I mean, you sent me.
The 2.5 was the very first payment we made, which was on the TIF money.
I didn't see that, but you sent me the one for the 3.2 million.
Correct.
And
All the
that does
got the
list
same email.
where all the expenditures were sent to, and I don't know, you can look at it, unless you're doing investigative, if you actually got your money's worth or something. I just, it might be a waste of money.
Director Ellenbecker, are you pretty clear on what we're looking for? I mean, with the additional documentation to see if any public funds were used on any of the documentation that Mr. Doucette had handed out?
I'm not, well, I guess my direction would be that all the backup they gave us, what they said they were going to spend our 3.2 million on, I would assume that's what our auditors would do, is make sure that those.
Find out that it was all supported.
That money was supported,
Okay.
and then our check went toward to pay whatever they submitted to us saying they were gonna pay, that they turned around and paid with that money.
Okay, that's.
I don't know how we would chase something that, we have invoices, I can't say it's valid, we have invoices, that's what was approved by all the junior lenders, and was approved, and then we turn around and send our money, and we would, I guess, again, go back and see whether or not those vendors received the money.
Well, I mean, when I read that one, I did study with a fine tooth comb, but I did look it over, and, I mean, they bought cutting tables, they bought cutting tables, whatever it is. That all seemed fairly straightforward, that stuff, to me. I am interested in the last one, though, the $355,000. Do you have any accounting of where that was spent?
It was all in the email I sent to you. It was on the same email all 3 of you got, or all 12 of you got.
Well, did you send that one to me? 'Cause I didn't.
Yep, all
Really?
12 of you got it on Wednesday evening. Thursday evening I sent it out, 6, 7 o'clock at night I sent to you. It went, out of the 355, the large payments went to Tweet Garrett. They had for HVAC, 132,000, Tweet Garrett Plumbing, 24,000, Automated Logistics, or Logic, for HVAC of about 50,000, Faith Technology for electrical of 49,000. There was a Paul Crandall Roofing of about 18,000, RJ Jacques, Masonry, about 11,000, and there was an item for KPH for general conditions subcontractors of about 25,000. There's some smaller ones in between, but those were the drivers of the 355,000 we sent out in December.
So there was only one to KPH?
Yes.
For 25,000?
Yes.
He testified that he didn't pay
What I
any
looked
to
at,
us.
we can look at whether they actually paid those bills or not, but I'm sensing it wasn't, so I think I'm more interested in what Mr. Doucette was talking about.
Can you describe for us again what that was? I mean, we need to know what you and Mr. Weary are asking to be audited.
Well, to examine that document and find out if those were fabricated numbers, or if they're actually legitimate. Are there checks that actually, money that was actually spent when he's showing the equity that he supposedly put into the project?
All right, now I
And of course,
understood,
some of it, I mean, I looked at some of it, he was paying himself $185 an hour for $25,000 a month.
I understood that data that he handed out represented equity that he was claiming he had in the project.
Right.
These were basically things that he had put into the project such that he met whatever the equity qualification was for the financing.
I'd like to know if that's true.
I'm not sure how we audit that. Because
I'm not sure.
we wouldn't have access to those invoices.
Well, we could ask the developer to show us the canceled checks or
Okay.
whatever. That was a serious charge. And what Mr. Doucette was insinuating is actually true. That's not a man I want to do business with.
Well, this
Even if he
agenda
wins
item
his
is just
lawsuit
on
there, I don't
hot
want
item
business with him. Because the city can foreclose. The city can foreclose.
Yes,
Regardless of what happens with the court case that goes on.
right.
We can foreclose and rebid it to finish, repropose to finish the project. And when somebody publicly, an important figure in the project, makes those kind of accusations, I think we need to check it out.
And that's what we've got.
That's much more
over, so.
important to me than really, I'm slowly getting the information. Here, I'm not, if that $355,000 had been $325,000 to Mr. Arenda, and he was paying his own companies with it or something, then I'd want to look at that very carefully, but it doesn't seem that that's the case there. So, I mean, I don't want to spend money needlessly with auditors either, if we don't need them. I think we should dig into something that may or may not be important, and I think we need to uncover that. And if it's true, I'll be the first to apologize, or to say, I'm sorry I doubted you, but somebody important, an important figure in the project, brought it forward. And maybe he had his own axe to grind, maybe it's totally bunk, but maybe it isn't. And I think we need to know that.
And we have a motion and a second on the floor right now that we need to vote on so that we can have her do that.
I think that's a waste of time and money.
There's people out there that are claiming that they have not been paid, Mr. Alderman Zima, that are on that list.
Is it those
That there's,
people?
yeah, our Jakes might be filing and a few others that, you know, Tweak Air ain't the happiest people, and they're saying they all got paid. I'd like to see those receipts from them, saying they did actually receive money.
This is just a request for quotes on the,
But they might have received some money, but not all of
Just
the
a-
money.
Yeah.
This is just a request for quotes to determine how much it would cost to have an audit firm go in and, we gave them a cut of a check, where did the money go?
right.
Yes. And it would be the three,
Just on this
we've
item.
changed it now to be the three payments from the city. Well, $3.6 million of HUD money and $2.5 million of TIF money.
Well, I'd like an audit of, I'd like to obtain that document and ask somebody to go track it down and give us a report on what that's all about.
Does the city clerk have that document, or where did it end up after this past time?
I don't know.
I can double check. I don't know where that document went. 'Cause, I don't know what the age of the document is, how we
Who made the
acquired the
document.
document, where the document came in, how long it's been, but I can find out. I can find what, obviously it probably went either to the lawyer's office or it probably went to the clerk's office.
Okay, all in favor of the motion on the floor? Aye. And opposed? None? Okay.
I think, Alderman Zima, we gotta go down and make another communication tomorrow, because it wasn't on this, but I just wanna point out clearly what
The
Mr.
TIF
Duce,
money wasn't on here either,
Well,
so I don't know.
well, just, go ahead.
what Mr. Doucette was saying is, when they were filling out their papers and getting the credits that they needed, they were saying they had $900,000 of equity in, when Mr. Doucette had the keys and Mr. Handa was never in that building at that time. And to claim all these, and it was his attorney that found these out through, when they went through all the documents, these were filed as part of their resources, or whatever, you, Joe, you would more know, or Orman Zima, but, the word I'm looking for, but yeah, these documents couldn't have been made, and these claims couldn't have been made because they never had an opportunity to even do this work.
Well, President Dwayne, what I'm getting at, and committee members and Mr. Moore, Chairman, is that if there's fraud, we need to know it. And there's an accusation of fraud. And I think that's of great importance to us to know if there's fraud there or not. Those are serious accusations. Maybe it's much ado about nothing, but my eyebrows are up. And, you know, getting an audit of bills that were really paid or something, I don't think it's gonna cost $1 million to do that. I think it's so much an hour, and how long does it take to go look at the bills and see if they're actually canceled checks that people were paid and stuff like that. But I mean, you just look at it, but I mean, I don't find that as interesting at this point as, is there fraud in our, who claims to be the sole developer? And I think we need to know that.
So you're asking for an investigation into an alleged fraud?
Yes.
That's not an audit, that's different.
Well,
That's
I
fine.
agree with Alderman.
I think an auditor, you need some type of accountant.
I agree with Alderman Dwayne. I think you need to fashion a separate communication aimed at that allegation of fraud. So we know exactly what it is you're asking for. Because right
Well, I
now,
think
I
I've
don't know.
explained it fairly well twice, but
We'll just put a communication.
if you don't understand what I'm saying,
No.
No, we do understand.
Well,
but
we
I'll
can't
do-
act on that here.
well, I appreciate that. But
I mean, on
it's
this-
related, we're looking to see if there's some kind of fraud or something
Well,
here.
let's put a communication.
And I'm starting to think that, you know, from what I see, that maybe that part of it isn't fraudulent. The fact that some people haven't been paid, well, they may have been paid something, but maybe they're owed a lot more, you know, and I'm interested in what they're owed. I guess I'd like to know what all the unpaid bills are at this point in time, what they add up to. Because we need to make a decision somewhere along the line how we're gonna get this job done.
That's it.
And I'm not gonna depend on the court and how long they may take, you know, the delays of office, the things that go on. I read the transcript, and I just have my own opinion based on reading it, who I think is in the right or the wrong on it, but I don't think it matters to us in the end. This thing is beyond us right now, and I don't want to continue dealing with someone if they've committed fraud.
All right, that's
I
not an
don't- I
agenda
don't
item.
care
All right,
if
we're
you-
gonna move on. Item number 9 is the report by the finance director.
The only update I was gonna let you know is we're starting our year-end audit, and that starts on Monday, and it goes through 4/17 through about 4/26, I think, is when our audit, we have an 8-day audit coming up, starting Monday. This is Pam Manley. She has been hired as our assistant finance director as of Monday.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Pam has been with the
She's
city.
meeting our handicap hiring, right?
You've been with the city for how many years?
It'll be 4 years in July.
She's been working part-time as finance manager over at Transit, and she's been our grant manager in the city of finance.
Welcome aboard.
And that's it.
She's been operating one leg,
Move to
right?
receive and place on file as finance director's report.
Second.
Motion second, receive and place on file. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion
None?
Yep.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. That's it. Thanks.
You go sell a house?